Good afternoon, it's Frederick. I thought I would record a quick video to show you a few tricks on how to format your Tableau workbook using the Kailo data. I've seen a few few groups, but because I can't see everyone, I hope that video can be useful. Only basic tips and tricks to make your charts a bit easier to read. So I'm going to share my screen first. Stopping the video, I don't need that. So I'm going to be using only one of the data set, the employee data. But what you're going to see is basically applicable for the two data sets. So I've got a bunch of items I want to cover. That will make your chart much easier to understand and to read for your assessment. So the first one, let's say I'm going to display the date and the serial cells. So any cells measures. So if you look at the cells, it applies for those ones, this one and this one. Let's say I want to make a bar chart out of that. The first thing that I see often is people forget to put the labels in there. So I know you got a x-axis there that sort of tells you what it is, but if you put the labels, which is a very simple icon there at the top, you see now the labels, it's much easier to read. Because you got the labels, you don't actually need the x-axis there, so you could decide to remove it. So I'm just Control Z, you just hover the axis and you go show header. Another little trick is you can, to make the chart a bit easier to view, you can just use entire view. And that's it, you got your bar chart. To clean that up even further, you can see that we got only 3 years of data. There's no information for this one, so you could click on it once and exclude. So it's doing a filter there. Obviously, if you use month instead of year, so let's say I'm going to use month in this one. Go to bar charts. So you play with the layout. It really depends on the situation. Up and down. You can swap rows and axes. So you can play with those formatting there. But for that kind of scenario, what I would also do, that's something that often people forget, is you can mark those as dollar signs. I have the unit there, so it's 231 the cells. So it's can format. So you can either do it from here on the left. So let's say I'm going to find service status, service cells, which is this one there. So you can click on that. Default properties, number format. In there you choose currency, custom. In there, and depending on the situation, you could have millions or thousands. You can play with that. And you see now the numbers have changed, and there's a dollar sign next to it. So you can play around with that. Also maybe use some colors to make the bar stand out. So you just basically use service cells. In this one, include that to color. You can see there that we've got February to June. Those are the sales information. I've included labels, I've included the dollar signs. What you can also do to make it even better is have the labels inside the bars. So see, I've done 4 or 5 little design tricks that make the bar chart stand out a bit more. Can bring that to your, if you're interested. So those are the your information. You can play with those settings there. Keep in mind that when you got a date in your data set, like this one, and that's displayed there in rows, there's multiple ways you can display the date information. This one is the discrete. So you can see the date as there, 20 and so on, or you choose this one, month, as I did before. So you can play with those settings, but what I did visually, having the color used to basically highlight the biggest month in terms of sales. That's one point, but also include the labels, dollar signs, and then remove the axis that you don't really need. And also use interview, because by default, if I do it again, by default, Tableau gives you what's called a standard view. You can see even if I create a bar chart, that's a standard view and it gets a bit crowded. So interview makes it stand out a bit more. Another thing I've noticed also, let's say I'm going to put product sales and then jobs. That's often people use too many colors in a chart. So what I'm displaying there very briefly is the job by product sales. But I've seen people just coloring all the dimensions, like the jobs, and maybe it looks a bit pretty, or I even see people using tree maps or bubble. Those are very hard to read. So you could, in theory, have that very popular kind of chart that is quite hard to read. You can sort of read those ones, but beyond that, those ones are very hard to understand. Same thing with the tree map where it becomes hard. So with the students I've seen in tutoring sessions, I often told them just use the bar charts because it's much easier. But I wouldn't use the bar chart with all the colors like this one. I'd rather have, if I go back to my product cell, kind of what I did before, I use the numbers to color. And obviously, as I did before, including the labels, stick some dollar signs in this one, maybe put it on the left, and just remove that. But my point is, be careful with the colors. It doesn't make sense to usually it doesn't make sense to color the dimensions like those guys. Doesn't give you much in the V's. There's a lot of colors. It looks pretty, but it's pretty useless. Something also, I think I've already mentioned it a few times, but you can use groups. In that scenario, you can see there's 35 jobs. It's quite a lot. And also, some of the jobs are duplicated. So if I remove that, just to demonstrate, remove that. Yeah, so they're all the jobs, 35 jobs. You can see this one and this one are very similar. This one, this one, this one, this one. They're actually the same job, but it looks like there's a typo. You can see the sign in the middle is different. So it's probably a data entry issue. Same with this one, exactly the same scenario. So in that situation, what I would do to avoid having to visualize 35 jobs, because there's probably maybe 20 that's interesting in the data set, I would create a group, and then bunch all those things together. So you select the two you want to group, and go click group, and then you just give it a name, and so on. So you do that for all the things you want to group. So this one is case services. For front desk, you sort of could argue that those three could also be together. And so on, manager, or maybe not. Those three managers potentially. So I think I have a bit of a play with which one makes more sense to group. Manager front desk. This one probably. This one and this one. Skin therapist. See, when you forget to rename one, you can just go there and go rename. So now I've created a few groups. This one, maybe therapist could be another one. But you get the idea. You're just removing number of dimensions you got in the data set. Click apply. See now there's a new column called job group. And if you put this one in there, that's your new group. And then you don't need this one. So now you got 26. And I'm sure you can even group a bit more, like manager set could be grouped. There's others that could group. Something I was suggesting also is you could maybe group by admin people, like accounts, front desk, marketing owner. Those could be admin or operational type of groups. And you got all the therapy people, doctors, skin therapists, nurses. So you might have only two groups in your data set, and you might want to compare the cells that those groups generate. So for example, that's it. I've got, if you remember, I've already formatted this one. Service cells, now it comes up with dollar. So it's always better to format on the left-hand side there. And then I've got my cells, can sort them. You can turn that to a bar chart here, or just drag this one here. Now I've got a bar chart, and then don't forget to include the numbers, formatting, side, what I've done before, service cells in color, and so on. Another trick as well I want to show you is, and I forgot also to show on type view. So that's a better looking bar chart. But you can sort of notice at the bottom, there's lots of jobs that don't make any cells. So if I'm going to duplicate, and I'm going to introduce a concept called top end filtering. So basically filtering out people you don't want to see in the chart. I mean, there's a couple of ways you can filter. There's multiple ways. One way is to click on the jobs you don't want and exclude. And Tableau created a filter here. So that's one way. You just basically manually removing the thing you don't want. The other way is to drag job group to filter here in the middle and go to the top section by fields. And in there, you can specify the top 10, for example. So it gives me the top 10 jobs or top 5. You can also guess that you can also do the bottom. I mean nothing because there's no data, there's no cells, but sometimes it's useful to know that. But in that situation, you might do top 10, top 10 jobs, and then one of the important factor is if you do a screenshot for your assessment, let's say you don't want this one, use the title in there. So in there, you could say top 10 service cells by job. So use a good title. That's what I mean. Like if you use that kind of title there, by default, it doesn't tell you what it is. But by using a better title when you do a screenshot for your assessment, I suspect you're going to do a screenshot and then stick that into a Word doc. You got the title already there. As you can see, the title is there. You can also do worksheets, export image. That would export the sheet there as an image. So I think those are quite useful tricks. Another one I want to show you as well is you can use dual axis. Yeah, I think that might have been covered in the tutorials, but let's say you got job groups in there. You might want to have, if I go back to the sales examples, product sales, service sales. So I might just want to stick product sales in there, and then service sales in there. I'm including the labels. As you can see, I formatted this one, but I didn't include this one. So let's do it again on this one. Number format, currency, maybe in thousands. That's it. I'm going to sort those. So now I've got my job groups. I've got my product sales and service sales in the same view. But what I could do, instead of having two charts side by side, if I click on that green pill, I can make it dual axis. So that's the first step. I've made it dual axis. By default, Tableau messes up your bar chart, as you can see there. So see those two there on the left in the marks area? Those are here. So what I usually do is I usually check a couple of things. One, that the axis, the two x-axis are consistent. And you can see, I don't know if you can see, this one goes from 0 to 300Ks. 300Ks is there. So they're not at the same scale. So the trick with this one is to right click and then synchronize axis. Now they're on the same scale. The next step is to click on one of them. Let's say I'm going to click on product sales. I'm going to turn that into bar charts. Going to service sales and maybe turn that could be bar charts, but you can play with the settings and have a look at the one that looks a bit better. You might see that it's quite busy because we've got the two labels that are actually turned on at the same time. But what you could do to make it nicer on top view, just give you more space. You could say product sales, that's the label there, make it inside the bar there. I could, as I did before, job group by top 5, for example. Make sure you choose sales. We want sales. Product sales. So we got the top 5 sorted. See filtered, top 5 groups. The jobs group are there. Those are the money generated. And I've got product sales as a bar. See, that's a bar chart. And I've got this one, service sales. I've set that up as a Gantt, which is a little line there. But you could play with the setting and have maybe this one as a bar chart and make it smaller. That's a nice type of chart that sometimes people use. You could even put the labels to this one on the right hand side. Have the font matching the color. So that's another type of bar chart. The good thing with Tableau is you can sort of practice and then play around with the settings. It doesn't matter too much. And as you'll find a nice looking chart As long as you remember the dual axis, as long as you remember to synchronize, that's one point. So you make sure the axis scale is at the same level. So we're comparing millions with millions, like that's million, that's million. Before it wasn't. And if I remove the synchronize, you can see that we're comparing 300 Ks to a million, but the front case is bigger. It doesn't make sense. So that's why it needs to be synchronized. Or otherwise, it'd be misleading. But as you can see, that's a okay type of chart. But you can play with the settings and then have the dots or whatever you feel like. There's no real rule, as long as the bar and the chart looks easier to read. You can also hide the headers, like I've hidden the top one. The bottom one stays there, you can keep it. Or as I did before, remove it. In that situation, I'll probably keep one. It might be a bit easier to keep. And then keep in mind, product and services sales. Something I've covered also before, I think, that you can also create calculations. So products and service sales, you could say, I want to visualize the sum of those two things. So if I take the job as an example again, so I've got, if I search for sales, it'll be easier. Product sales, service sales. I can actually create a calculation that just includes those two together. So you go create calculation field, and there just type total sales. And then there's I mean, there's a few ways you can write calculations. Something to keep in mind is they always, most of the time, 99% sum, it's a sum of something. So sum of product sales plus SUM, I'm just typing sum and then service sale. Okay, so now see there's a new calculation coming up. If I go default property, number format, currency, one decimal, thousand, so maybe million. Now if I click on that, turn that to a bar chart, same as usual, but now I've got the total of product sales and service sales together into one column called total sales. Pretty cool little trick. So you can do calculations on pretty much everything in the Tableau space. Something, so this one you can call total sales. Something that a few students ask in the tutorial, how to create pie charts, for example, or any kind of charts. I know pie charts is very useful, very popular. So there's a little trick that is quite useful in Tableau is you can, when you select dimensions and measures on the left there, Tableau tends to tell you what's possible to build in terms of charts. See the show me, make sure the show me is enabled there. So now I've got dates selected. So Tableau tells me now you can create a table, but that's pretty boring. Someone wanted to have a pie chart created. So I'm going to show you how to create one the easy way. So you basically select the date because the pie chart would require dimension and measure. And then you go control and select something else. See, now I've got the dimension and the measure selected. And see now what happened on the right hand side. Tableau recommends the type of chart you can use, including the bar chart. So now Tableau gave me a the bar chart, I make it interview. My question with bar chart is they're not always super easy to understand. When you got only three quadrants, like this one, so this one, you can see the color is based on the years. It's not too bad. Beyond 3, 4, 5 quadrants, sections, it makes it super complicated and super hard to read. So I'll be careful. If I check product sales, I would probably stick labels to it. So now I can see that's 500Ks for 2023, 2024, and so on. So that's kind of okay. I'll probably maybe stick the labels, the years as well in the labels. So in there, in labels, you got the product sales, the dimensions measures you use to make super clear. Some little trick, you can just color them. What I would be very cautious about with bar chart is, as I said before, is when you got too many angles. Like I don't know if it's gonna work, but if you take this one, for example, that's an example of very bad bar chart where you got too many. So I've used jobs, for example, as segments or angle. You can see it's really, really hard to read the I don't know, I struggle to understand, especially the very small one. When you got three quadrants like this one, what I would be super careful about is if you look at the data set from Kailo, that's this one. I think we got July 2022. So it's part of 2022. So the data set starts from July 2022. We've got until December. We've got all of 2023. So the full year of 2023. That's good. 2023, December. And then we starting with Jan 2024. But the data finishes in Feb. So we got part of 2024 and part of 2023 and the full year of 2023. So that's normal that the 23 segment is much higher because this one is not complete. It's only a couple of months, and this one is not complete because we only started in July. So when you do a visual like this one where the value of using the bar chart is comparing different segments, you're not comparing apple with apple. So obviously that segment is much bigger because there's more month. When you look at number of months per year, that's obvious that this one will be bigger because so I think it's not. My point is you can create a bar chart, but it's not really useful because it's kind of misleading in that scenario. So that's why I'm sort of staying away from that kind of analysis. In theory, you could have this one because now we don't have the year information, but there's too many segments. So if you had something else like a different dimension, that could be useful. But when you compare with the years, be super careful because it's not fair for those two to be compared against the 2023 because this one has all the month. And there's only hardly any information for 2024. There's only a couple of months, and there's only 6 months for 2022. So be careful. That looks like a good chart, but it's quite misleading. I think those are the trick I wanted to reinforce. Formatting, having the $ formatting with the case. So do you remember you just go to, you pick one, you go default property, number format, and make sure your format as if it's a currency, and thousands or something else. what you can do, so as I said, you can do it from here, but let's say you got, you want to display the years and you want to display total sales. Sometime, like that chart, make it a bar chart. Sometimes it's makes sense to have those displayed. So I've displayed them, if you remember, I've formatted them in total sales. I go back in there, number format, thousands here, but I prefer having those in millions. So what you do, you click on that, right click, format, and then change. So there's a couple of places you can change. There's a scale here. So currency, custom, million. So those are my million. And also in the pane area, see K, so you can go currency, million. And the little trick as well is to turn that inside alignment. And then remove that, hide. So now you got a nice looking bar chart. You can also play with the formatting and make those stand out a bit more, bold and so on. Then you got the big numbers there. Someone also was on this one. You could call that top sales. Someone was also mentioning, like, if you want to have just a highlight number or KPI number. That's super simple. So for example, if you wanted to have total sales, what you could do is you could bring total sales to text, and that's it. You got your number there. So what you could do is you could format, as I said before, currency, custom, make that a million. Uh, so that's how much we sort of revenue, total sales. And obviously what you can do when you're here, you can make that stand out and have a very large number. But so you could have, if you want to display like a very big number, that's one way you could have total sales API. So you could do the same with like the count. So the count of the transactions, if you remember, and so on. I've only picked sales, but you get the idea. And you can also, if it's useful, which I've done there, I've broken down. So if I redo it, that's my total sales. And similar to the charts I've done there, I'm breaking it down by year. So I'm basically building a KPI bar that's got, I don't want this one. I've done before, exclude. So I've done basically a KPI bar that includes the free sales for the 3 years. Make that to make it a bit prettier. What you could do is you could add the text, go back to your text and change that. That's the way you normally do a KPI box. Where you got the years and you got the big numbers in there. Because I've already put the labels there, you don't need those here as well, so you can just not show the header. Oh, that's it. That's your KPI box. Big numbers for the sales, and obviously you make sure you call that total sales and something else. So I hope those formatting tips will be useful. Then you can follow them and make your Tableau work, your Tableau assessment even more beautiful. Good luck, everyone.